Hello, hi everybody. This is Maylee Bingham from pitglass.com, and I'm so excited that you're here with me tonight. I have a featured guest, Caroline Vazzana, who is a fashion writer, editor, stylist, and influencer, and she's the founder of Making It in Manhattan. And I'm going to bring her on the screen right now. There she goes. Hi, Caroline. Thank you so much for coming on today. I wanted to introduce you to the Pitglass family, and thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So today we want to talk about networking and using fashion influencers. A lot of my readers are either starting their own brands or they have their own small businesses, and a lot of times they think that they may or may not want to work with influencers. And I thought you would be the perfect guest to explain to people how that works and what you do as a fashion influencer and what your role is.
Totally. So I kind of had an interesting, upbringing as an influencer. I started my career as a fashion editor. I worked at Teen Vogue and InStyle, and then about a year ago, I went out on my own and started to try out this whole thing that we call, influencers. So I began building my Instagram following, starting to collaborate with different brands and things like that. And I do think it's really beneficial to work with influencers. I think it helps get brand awareness, it helps bring up sales, but it's also a really interesting way of advertising. It's a non-traditional advertising form rather than buying ads in a magazine or paying for an ad online. To collaborate with an influencer who's going to style your product in a way that you would maybe not expect, or a really interesting photo that you can now use for branding. So using influencers is a really, really great tool, and I found it really fun and interesting because I get to use so many different aspects of what I've learned in the industry as an influencer now.
Great. So I first want to start out, let's go back a little bit. You and I met about 3 or 4 years ago, and at the time you were still a senior in college. And can you tell us a little bit about how you got that first job in the industry? I believe it was with Mary Claire, and just kind of talk about how you first got that job in the industry, and then kind of what you did on your day-to-day kind of role there and what you learned from that position.
Totally. So one of my first magazine internships was actually with Marie Claire. I was a fashion intern there. And that was kind of my first segue into the magazine world, and what you see in movies and in TV shows is kind of what I was getting to do. I was calling samples for photo shoots we were doing. I was working directly with all of the editors. I was helping out on set for 3 months, that internship, but I learned so much. And then once I graduated college, I landed my first job at Teen Vogue, where I was assisting the fashion editors and the fashion director. And that was an incredible experience. And I took a lot of what I learned as an intern I used it at Teen Vogue. So I was, communicating with publicists and designers on a daily basis, calling in garments for the cover stories for different photo shoots throughout the magazine, and I was running around the city and doing pickups, and I was handling expense reports and being, to be an assistant to editors, you have to be very, very organized, arranging travel and schedules and all that stuff. And while I was there, though, I started writing. I started writing for TeenVogue.com, and that was kind of my first foot into the actual journalism world. I didn't necessarily study journalism in college. I always enjoyed writing and fashion writing specifically, and being given that opportunity at Teen Vogue to write for TeenVogue.com really helped me, further my passion for it and to learn more about it. And I absolutely loved it. And then from there, I think I really like this writing aspect. I think I want to do that a little bit more. So I started going towards that. Yeah.
Great. So when you were working at both Mary Claire and Teen Vogue and I think it was InStyle, you were saying that you got your first opportunity to start writing. So how did you go about finding either the people or the brands that you were writing about? It sounds to me like a little bit of the work in the editorial department kind of helped you to meet new people and things like that. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, how you met people in the industry and how you kind of came up with your stories and stuff?
Yeah, so specifically when I was in-house, as far as meeting people goes, you're emailing, hundreds of people on a daily basis. We, as magazine editors and writers, we get so many emails, but so that's one part of the networking. It's just the exchanges via email, always answering your emails and staying on top of that. But then there are also a lot of fashion events that you're invited to. You're always attending those, and that's when you really get to meet the people in person and make that in-person connection and networking, which can then potentially lead to a story or something like that. So when I was trying to find ideas for stories, personally, it comes very organically. I'm always looking for, what's the latest trend, what's everyone wearing right now, what's going to be the next big thing. But a big part of it too is definitely when I'm like at events or things like that, and I can see something really cool and be there in person, find more inspiration and make my connections and use my connections and give them great placements that they'll be super excited about. So that's all part of the industry, kind of just helping one another and being there for each other and fostering those connections even further.
That's great. So when you were also working at these different magazines, did you have to work with other influencers? And if so, how did that kind of communication work? Did they reach out to you or was it vice versa?
So the only time I think I personally ever worked with an influencer was maybe when I was at InStyle. I used to do different stories. One in particular was how to take a really good Instagram picture. So I then interviewed different influencers who I thought had really great Instagram content and pictures. And how that specifically worked was me reaching out as a writer and telling them about the story and asking them if they'd want to take part in it. But it was never really them reaching out to me specifically, like asking to be featured or anything like that. That kind of works. I think that would be a little bit more the marketing side of the magazine. I know that sometimes they'll do collaborations with brands, and then they'll be looking for an influencer to maybe host an event or to do something with the brand specifically. So that's, I think, a little bit more of the marketing side of the magazine. But if it was ever to write an article, I would reach out.
Okay, great. So now you are decided to go out on your own and you've been freelancing as both a writer and an editor and a stylist and a fashion influencer. So you're doing a lot. And just watching your Instagram feed, it's a little exhausting. It seems like you are everywhere all the time.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you split up your work as far as how much of the day are you spending editing or how much of the day are you spending as doing a stylist or that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's always for me really on a project basis. So when I have a big project coming up, I'm always prioritizing that to the top of my list of what needs to be done. As far as writing goes, I have an editorial calendar for my website, and then I also freelance for various fashion magazines online. So for my website, I have a calendar I try to stay true to, but then if I do have an article for, say, Teen Vogue or Real Simple or Marie Claire pop up that they want me to freelance out, I'll push that to the top of my writing kind of schedule. But as far as styling goes, again, that's on a project basis. So I just styled someone for Comic-Con, and I'm styling someone else for PopCon, which is coming up. Projects come about, it's putting those at the top of my schedule and prioritizing those.
Okay, so I have one question here. One of our people that came into the chat, she wants to know how long it has taken you to kind of build up your own brand as far as whether it's your, I can't tell if she means your website or your Instagram, but how long did it really take you to kind of build up your following and really be recognized as a fashion influencer?
That's a really good question, and it's something that I'm always continuously working towards. At a point where I felt like, oh, I've made it, that I can stop now. But I think, I mean, I've only been out on my own, really actively pursuing this for about a year, a little under a year actually. September will be a year. Something that I can tell you that's really important that will help you grow and to grow quickly is message is finding what your brand is and what sets you apart from the rest. Because there are so many influencers out there now who are doing similar things. So finding what's going to set you apart and then just running with it and having fun with it. So when your followers know that they can come to your page for something, what your brand is, they know what they can expect, your following is going to grow because people really, really love you and they want to see what you're doing. So, and I think also doing not stopping and giving up because you're not going to see growth right away. Working hard and working towards it, you will definitely see growth, especially with my website a year ago, and it's really skyrocketed. And that's just been because I've been constantly doing it and working hard and putting the content out there, and also just believing in it and believing in myself and knowing that I have something. I want people to hear my voice.
That's great. Talk a little bit more about how you found your voice. Did you feel like you always had the same type of writing style when you were at the different magazines, or do you have to kind of change your writing style a little bit depending on the project that you have?
Yes, so that's a great question. You definitely have to change your voice depending on where you're writing for. I wouldn't use the same tone of voice to say write something for Teen Vogue that I would for Town and Country or for something that's maybe a little bit older. Teen Vogue's very conversational, and I think finding my personal voice that I write with on my website and that you can read in my Instagram captions has kind of just been trial and error. I like to be very conversational and fun and relatable and just kind of like you're talking to a friend or to your best friend who lives there. That's kind of how I brand it. Someone who's comfortable messaging and reaching out to, and someone that if you have a question you don't feel intimidated. So that's kind of been my voice. My voice is just, a relatable, fun voice and it can be turned for anything, but it's definitely learning when I turn on my voice because sometimes there are freelance articles for different places that want me to write as me, so I'll very much so write in my voice, make it funny and witty and things like that. But then there's other places that are like just write the article. So it just really depends.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to read all the questions from the chat at the same time. So we have one more question. Ask me a question. They would like to know whether or not, or I should say, how you go about, if you, as a fashion influencer yourself, how do you go about finding either collaborations or brands that you're going to work for? Are you reaching out to them, or are they coming to you once you've built your brand?
I would say when you're starting out, it's definitely more so reaching out to people and like introducing yourself and having them get to know you, especially if you haven't ever worked in the industry before and you're literally starting from ground zero. It's definitely going to be like hours of you sending out emails, and that's okay. It's not wasted time. It's really helpful and it will benefit you in the end. The point where I'm at now is probably 50-50 or even maybe a little bit 75% of them looking at me now because I have developed a following and a voice and a brand. Now the brands are coming to me and asking me to work together. But I still do outreach all the time. If I find a brand on Instagram that I think is really cool and fun and would be on brand for who I am, I always send them an email and I'll introduce myself and say hi and just try to see how we can work together. And especially when you're just starting out, be open, reach out to everyone. If people are willing to give you something, be open to saying yes and do a really, really great job. Because when you're starting out, you never know if you need something further down the road or, a long-term, collaboration or something like that. But it definitely, now more so it's them reaching out, but when I was starting, it was definitely more so me reaching out.
That's a really good recommendation, because I think that so many people don't know how to get started and they don't know how to reach out. And so, there's a lot of things on the internet, and you can YouTube right now of how to have the perfect Instagram feed, or how to start a website or a blog, and there's just so many different ways of doing it, and I think everyone, it does take them a while to find their voice. It certainly took me a while as well with my website, so it probably didn't get a flow for a good 6 or 9 months. So okay, so we have one more question. Question is, how would you recommend someone who is starting their own fashion line get, I guess she's asking whether or not to get publicity via fashion influencers? Is it something that they would even consider?
Yeah, I definitely think if you're a small emerging brand, it's very helpful to get your name out there via influencers. But with that being said, you have to target the proper influencers. So if you're a very small and emerging brand and you don't really have a budget to pay influencers, I target what I call micro influencers, maybe influencers who have around 10K following or a little bit less, and reach out to them because they'd be happy if you tell them you're a small and emerging brand and you're willing to give them something in exchange for a post. I'm sure they'd be happy to receive the product because, similar to the question I was just answering about them reaching out or starting, you're happy to get products for free when you're just starting out and you're happy to promote it. So I think just reaching out to influencers who are, maybe more so willing to work with a small and emerging brand. I think those are the best ones to really target towards, and coming up with a really good pitch out to these influencers is really, really beneficial and will help you down the road for sure. I think we might have frozen for a second. Let me see. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, sorry. My computer keeps bouncing. I apologize for that. I am so sorry.
No worries.
Let me just check one thing, because I want to make sure that everyone can hear this. I don't want anyone to miss out. So, okay, we are back. I am so sorry about that. So now I just have one final question for you, and that is, we have one other question from the chat, and Beverly would like to know, she's interested in being a fashion editor. How should she go about, do you have any special recommendations for someone who is applying for a position at a magazine in particular?
That's a great question. Saying that to a lot of them, because there's so many great questions. Yeah, when you're trying to become a fashion editor, it definitely takes persistence. You have to not give up easily because it can take a long time. I'm not sure if you've had any internships at magazines, but that definitely helps because it's a way to get your foot in the door and just to start meeting people and to start networking and learning. As far as applying goes, when you're applying, say, through a website, that is, I always say, it's kind of like Alice through the rabbit hole. It's a little bit disheartening. You don't know where you're going to end up. But some advice that I can give you is actually trying to out to the fashion editors specifically, whether it's via LinkedIn or you are able to find their email online. I know a lot of the websites online that have digital mastheads with emailing them directly rather than just applying to the website. I think it's very beneficial, even just asking them for an informational interview or if you can take them out to coffee and get to know them. I think that is so nice. People, if you're coming to them rather than just saying, hey, I'm looking for a job and kind of just being like, I'd like to get to know you, can I see you out? I think a lot of editors are really receptive to that and are doing that because they want to help out. They've been there, they've done it. So I think approaching it in the right way, but also emailing and reaching out to everyone, especially nowadays, fashion editor jobs are very, very scarce. And it's not as magazines and the traditional fashion editors kind of a thing of the past in a way. There are still definitely openings, but I think also being open, applying to digital magazines, digital brands, and things like that, not only just applying to print magazines, I think would be really beneficial.
That's really good. Thank you so much. So where can our readers find you and where can they follow you? Can you tell us about your website and give us all of your little social tags?
Awesome, yeah. So starting with my website, I guess my website is called Making It in Manhattan, and the URL is makingmanhattan.com. And it's a very fun site. It talks all about career advice. So some of the things that we touched on tonight, I really delve into the various articles. I interview some of the designers, and stylists, and editors of the industry and influencers as well. So you might want to check that out. And then I do a lot of style stories. So it's a really great website, and I hope you guys find it as a resource. And then my personal Instagram is at Vazzana. It's my first name on my last name, Caroline Vazzana. And then my website has an Instagram as well, and it's Making Manhattan.
Cool. I'm sure everyone's going to want to check that out. And I want to thank everybody for actually showing up live tonight. I really appreciate it. I don't know exactly where everyone's coming from, but here in New York City, it was torrential downpour. So I really do appreciate everyone who actually showed up live. And this interview is part of a 3-part series. We are going to be doing a live stream once a week this month in August as part of our pre-sale launch to my very first online course called Fashionable Networking. And this course teaches everything that you could possibly want to know about how to network in the fashion industry from scratch, so it's not super awkward anymore. And everyone who showed up live is going to receive an email at 10 o'clock tonight with a very special 20% off early bird special discount code, so you can check it out. So thank you again for showing up live, and have a great night. Thank you so much. Bye.